Okay, so we're going to have a bit of an adventure here, because I'm actually recording the audio separate from the video, and my attempt at recording the video failed, and so now I am doing the audio first and then recording the video and hoping that I'll keep up with myself when I do that. So we'll see whether this works or not, but it's going to be fun anyway, either way. So on this map, you can see all these red dots represent temples. You can see a lot of temples in North America. There's a decent number in South America as well. Europe's pretty well covered. Only a few in Africa. Big empty area in the middle of Asia. There's plenty on the Pacific Rim of Asia and in the Pacific in general. The immediate guesses that I would have for places that would be furthest from a temple, just from looking at this map, would be obviously the South Pole, certain oceans, and also the center of Asia. I'd just like you to take a look at Asia for a second and remember how huge Asia is. So right now I'm going to turn on some green lines. This is a 200-mile buffer around each temple. I've merged all the buffers together, so you won't see a bunch of overlapping ones. As you can see, North America is almost completely covered. There's a couple areas, a nice big area in the middle of the Midwest. I live somewhere in that area. Spoiler alert. You go down to Central America. Central America is basically covered. South America, not so much, but a lot of that area is Amazon. You can see that Europe has pretty good coverage. Africa and Asia are still pretty empty. Alright, we're going to switch that off. I can only have one buffer on at a time or the thing will move very slowly. I'll put them all on at the very end though, so you can get a look at that. Next buffer is 500 miles. As you can see, all of the US and most of Canada is covered. Now from here on out I'm going to be increasing by 500 mile intervals. Let's see, Central America is covered. Most of South America is as well. The East Asian coast has covered the rest of Asia. It's still empty. Europe's covered, except for the southeastern tip of Greece and the northern tip of Norway and Sweden and Finland. Africa, still not too much. Now we're going to switch to purple lines, which represent 1,000 miles. Here we have the Americas completely covered, except for basically Punta Arenas. Apologies to a certain mission companion from there. Europe's all covered now. Most of Australia is, and also a surprising amount of the Pacific Ocean. Asia and Africa still have rather large empty chunks, and you can see there's nothing touching Antarctica yet. But now you can pretty clearly see that there's a line on the international date line that's actually a glitch there. It's not supposed to happen. But these buffers are really designed for two-dimensional maps, and we're working with a three-dimensional map here, or a globe. So just ignore that line, it's not supposed to be there. We're going to increase now to the red lines, represent 1,500 miles. At this point it's easier to talk about the areas that aren't covered rather than areas that are covered. So you've got a nice chunk of North Atlantic, including the Cape Verde Islands. There's a piece of the Pacific, starting down in Australia, extending up to Kamchatka, and this huge swath starting at Greenland, going across the Arctic Ocean, or should I say the North Atlantic, going across central Russia, and a lot of Central Asia, covers India, most of the Middle East, Northeast Africa, the entire Indian Ocean, all of Antarctica, and big chunks of the South Atlantic and South Pacific. From here, we're going to increase to 2,000 miles, represented by the orange lines. Now the North Atlantic hole is gone, and so is almost all of the one in the Central Pacific. The big swath that I just talked about is shrunk on every side, but the shape is still basically the same. We're going to go down to 2,500 miles, represented by the yellow lines. Now we're down to just two major areas. One of them covers most of Antarctica, and the other covers most of the Indian Ocean, plus a bit of Yemen and Oman, the tip of Somalia, and bits and pieces of India and Pakistan. Over here you can see, right on the Indian coast, well, I guess you can't really see it, but here on the Indian coast is the furthest LDS congregation from a temple, and Laserjock talks about the details of that in his answer. I don't remember exactly which one it is, which congregation it is. And so now we're going to go up to 3,000 miles, light green lines. Still got about half of Antarctica further than that from a temple. And in the Indian Ocean, we're down to just this little area. And right in here, we've got the Maldives, which, unless I'm missing something, and I think Laserjock confirms that I'm not, that is the furthest permanently inhabited point from a temple. Like Laserjock says in his answer, there is no permanently inhabited point in Antarctica. There are people who live there, but it's not permanent residence the same way it is elsewhere. And as far as I've been able to tell, there are no members of the church in the Maldives. Now we're going to go up to light blue lines at 3,500 miles. Now we're down to basically a triangle around the South Pole. And that's about it. Every point on the globe is less than 4,000 miles from a temple. Furthest LDS congregation from a temple is just a bit over, somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 miles. I'd guess about 2,700 miles, give or take. So now I'm going to turn all of them back on and just take a look around. Like I said, it moves pretty slowly when I've got all the buffers on, which is why I didn't start out with all of them on. And yeah, it looks cool though. And now I'm going to turn all of the buffers on. I'm going to turn on a thing called Theus and polygons. And these polygons, basically they're a tool to show the closest point to, they're basically a tool to divide the globe up into areas that are closest to each point. I'm doing a bad job of explaining that. But basically, there's going to be a polygon around each, or there is a polygon around each temple, and the area inside of that polygon is closer to that temple than to any other temple. Now, the international date line is causing all kinds of glitches here, because this is made for two-dimensional maps, again, and it's being used on a globe. But yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff here. I'm not really going to talk about it because I'm not actually watching it right now. I'm just saying all of this and trying to do it by memory. So hopefully this has turned out pretty well. Hopefully I won't have to record this a third time after recording the video. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If any of you have figured out my identity by listening to my voice, that's awesome. But please don't publish it on the internet or anything. If you have any more geography questions that you would like answered in a similar video, it's probably best if you warn me before asking the board so I don't take an absurd amount of time to finish them. And then once I've got it finished, you can ask a board question and I'll just put the ready-made answer or something like that. Or I can just do it for you. But yeah, email me at yayfulness@theboard.byu.edu. Hope you all have enjoyed this. And that is the end.